Hi, I'm Jason Frizzell. I'm here in my studio, which is also my home in Red Deer County, and realize it's been difficult because of the unrelenting cold snap and holiday season and current public health restrictions. It's been difficult for some of you to make it to Herringer Kiss Gallery to see my current exhibition, and we will dream of El Dorado, to see that exhibition in person. So we thought it might be interesting for me to put together a short video, just a really quick survey of a few of the pieces. And I thought how I would frame today's video is through the lens of some of my influences and some of my influences outside of fine art. So I don't want to talk about other sculptors. I want to talk about books and TV shows and movies that have inspired me or somehow captured my imagination, and how I sometimes layer those influences on the different pieces. It's probably the most obvious place to start for me is with Mad Max, the whole Mad Max universe, particularly the second film in the series, The Road Warrior, had a huge impact on me as a young fella, and I think what I'm mostly attracted to in films like that is just the general post-apocalyptic landscape and these rusted hulks of machineries and all the crazy vehicles and costumes that you would see in that world. And so pieces like You Are Not Alone obviously has some of that influence. Also a piece like This Salt No Longer Stings, again seeing these rusted hulks and the costumes and these kind of strange hybrid vehicles. Like many of us in Generation X, the Wizard of Oz was a fascinating film and story for us. And I think what I'm really interested in, or what really fascinated me, was just that idea of the journey and following a path. And so, a piece like When the Wheels Come Off, We Get Out and Walk, that series of pieces, probably the most obvious reference of, to figures that are traveling. Even if you're not sure what that destination is, you just kind of keep following that path. And a very obvious reference for me is that I use a paint for the shoes in most of the figures called Ruby Red. Obviously a direct nod to the Wizard of Oz universe. I think the next universe, it's a films, TV series, and animated series, started off as a novel, is The Planet of the Apes, and particularly that very first film from 1969, I believe. The role of man and humanity, and again a post-apocalyptic world. And so in a piece like Every Story is a Tragedy, Every Poem a Lament, I think that's pretty obvious that we have this strange relationship between nature and man and machines. The next really powerful influence for me is the Stephen King universe as a whole, but in particularly the novels that are part of the Gunslinger story. And again, these are characters that travel along a path. They follow the path of the beam, as it's referred to in the stories. But it's about heading to a destination, even if you're not certain. So very similar to Wizard of Oz, and something like A Tale Told with Stick and Stone has a very obvious path to it that these figures travel along. And I think the last influence that I want to touch on is the Flintstones, again being being in my early 50s, grew up watching the Flintstones, and so that concept of the domesticated dinosaur, that's really interesting to me, always has been. So if we look at a piece like Everything Crosses Over, that idea of humans and dinosaurs coexisting to some degree is interesting. And I also firmly believe that the Flintstones is in fact a story from the future. It is an apocalyptic, post-apocalyptic story, not a prehistoric story. And the last point I'll make, the last way that I think I'll frame things, is to talk about some of the overlap between these stories and influences, particularly if we think about Planet of the Apes and the Stephen King universe and the Flintstones. Is there's a time overlap where time isn't particularly linear. The Planet of the Apes characters believe they're on another planet, but in fact they understand that they are, eventually understand they are on planet Earth. The Gunslinger series is about time looping on itself and time overlapping and running parallel to itself. And as I mentioned a minute ago, I do believe the Flintstones has this strange crossover of this prehistoric feel. But you have the Jetsons showing up, you have an alien from another planet showing up, so there's this futuristic sense as well. So if we look at a piece like The Werewolves Clean Their Haunches, there's quite a bit of these interests and these influences overlapping and merging and colliding sometimes. Everyone's got the ruby red slippers, we've got dinosaurs, we've got strange mechanical vehicles, we've got a definite road or a path. So there's a really quick and dirty survey. Again, there's no substitute for seeing the art in person. So if you have the opportunity to, when you have the opportunity to visit Herringer Kiss Gallery, whether you make it before my current exhibition comes down or you're there in the future, you can always ask to see some work, and it's important to get out and see art in person. We've watched so much stuff on video, and it's great, but when you have the chance, please visit Herringer Kiss Gallery and visit whatever gallery is in your local community, depending on where you're watching this from. Well, thanks for hanging out for a few minutes, and stay safe, and hope to see you soon.